take you through how to do the second Excel assignment. You're going to take these numbers in, or some of these numbers that are requested, and input them. And you'll also have to take screenshots of um, histograms, um, as well as these columns. Um, just whatever is asked for in the quiz that you'll have to turn these into. But what we're going to do here is go over what you need to do to get this turned in. Um, with right now, this is a chop down sample. Your actual assignment will be a larger sample than this, so the numbers are not going to be the same as what I'm putting here, but you'll have more to do. So please don't go off of these numbers. You'll have to come up with the correct numbers and get them turned in, but you get unlimited tries to get those submitted. So hopefully this will be a little bit more straightforward once you see me do it. So first of all, I apologize. I've been coughing a lot, so I have an upper respiratory problem right now. So if I cough, I apologize. I've already tried to record this a few times. I've been having some trouble with the audio, so hopefully this will work this time. But first, we're going to look at like a pre-test and post-test situation. Okay, so I have scores on the pre-test and then the corresponding scores for each person on the post-test. Okay, so we have this person scored 53, and then at the end they scored 99. So for each of these variables, so you have the pretest and post-test. For each of these, you're going to create histograms, and you're going to get descriptive statistics, and then we will calculate these items in a few minutes. Okay, first of all, I'm going to take this pretest. I'm going to select all the data, and then I'm going to select insert, and then for a histogram, you have to go to this. It's a looks like it's a bar chart, but the bars are um, right next to each other. Okay, they don't have any space in between them, which means there's a continuous number. Okay, so this isn't something that's categorical, which you would use a bar chart. This is a histogram, which has bars, but it's right next to each other, meaning there's nothing missing in between here. It goes straight from one number to the next. Okay, so this is going to be your pre-test distribution. And then you have your post-test distribution. Okay, so you will be inserting for that. They are going to look different than mine, obviously. I don't want you to change anything. These look this way because I don't have very many in the sample. Oh, excuse me. So I'm going to put post test. I have to make sure you label your charts properly based on the variable. Okay. So I have a pre-test, then a post-test, and then so that is done. Okay. So I'm going to label these as I go just so you know, but you don't have to. This isn't a file you're going to turn in. You will be taking screenshots of these and turning them in. So to get the descriptive statistics, now this is going to include mean, median, mode, standard deviation, variance, minimum, maximum, all those things. So to get those, you're going to go to data, data analysis, and then this is going to pop up. So descriptive statistics, you click OK, And then you want the descriptive statistics for this pre-test. Label in the first row, yes. Um, and then you want to make sure summary statistics is checked. Your output range, you're going to put the output wherever is blank. For me, I'm going to put it right here. So this can be pre-test, and then click OK, and it's going to pop up a big box here with a lot of numbers. But it tells me that that's pre-test. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing for post-test. So I wonder if it'll, I think I have to select it afterward. Descriptive statistics, go to this top, and that's wanting to know what the input range is. So I'm going to select all of this, and I'm going to say labels in the first row. Summary statistics is checked. And then I want to put this right next to it. So I'm going to say L1, and then it'll pop up post test. Okay, so each of these have now or now have the proper numbers, but I can also do this, and since these are all in um, the same rows, I don't necessarily need this, right? Because it's just going to pop these in here, so they're right next to each other, so I can kind of like compare them a little bit easier visually. Excuse me. So in order to, one thing you have to remember with for APA style, which is you're in psychology statistics. Okay, so we're going to use APA style. You have to round 2 decimal points. Okay, so you go to the home, and then to round these to do 2 decimal points, anything with a decimal at least, you should be able to just select these, and then you want to reduce them to 2. Now, if you have, well, later on we'll talk about something called a p-value, and that might be different, but okay. And then anything that has the decimal point is going to need two decimal places. Okay, so that rounds it for you, so you don't even have to worry about rounding it incorrectly or correctly. That rounds it for you. Okay, these will be the numbers, not all of these numbers. You're not going to need all of them, but to input into the quiz, you're going to need these numbers. Okay, um, in the full sample. Okay, so now I have the statistics done. Okay, now the next thing to do is, I'm going to move this because I need a little bit more space. Okay, so the next thing we have to do is the score minus the mean. So, which is x1, m1, so x minus m for each of these. So x2 and 2. So this is variable 2, variable 1. That's why I put the 1s in there and the 2s in there. Okay, so the score, which is this, minus the mean, which for pretest, the mean is here. So what we're going to do is we're going to type in a formula. Okay, you can type in formulas that will auto-calculate for you, which actually is a really functional way to do spreadsheets, because if you make a mistake and you have to go back and change something, then it will change all of the things that you used to calculate instead of having to go everything you're doing. So I would recommend doing formulas however you can, um, in all the cases that you can. I personally use a spreadsheet like this to do budgeting, and then I'll put numbers in, and then if I get something and I have to change it, then it'll recalculate everything that I need it to. So this is really functional, and it could be something useful, not just in this class, but in your daily life. Okay, so in order to do a function, you have to put equals first, and then you want the score. So this minus, and then the mean over here for pretest is that. However, so I want to show, first I'll show you this way. You are going to, if you drag down, so see there's problems, you notice, you're like, what is going on? Doesn't make sense. Because one thing that I need to do, so what this is telling you to do is to also drag down. Okay, so that means that this next one is going to be this number and then this number and this number. However, it's also doing the same thing with A3. So it's dragging down here, right? So the instead of the next one, instead of subtracting 44.4, it subtracted 3.75. So you can see that by just looking at the 36 minus 3.75. That's what it did. So it's changing as we pull down, which we don't want it to do, right? Because the mean is the same. So the mean is going to be the same. But in case you ever needed, like in case there was something wrong with that number and you had to change it, what you want to do is make this, this makes it stable, like a static location, not dynamic. So dynamic is when it would move with you. Static means that it's always going to pull from K3, okay? So you have to put dollar signs in front of K, dollar sign in front of 3, and it will always pull from K3. So what you're going to do now, you go into this bottom corner and you can double click. There's also, if you wanted to just drag down like that, you could do that. But doing this is much faster when you have, um, I work with data sets in my everyday job that's sometimes, tens of thousands or even more than that. And if I'm able to use Excel, because Excel has its limited capacity to work with large data sets. But if it's something where it only has like 20,000 observations, I can still use Excel, but I'm not going to want to drag down to that end. So knowing the little tricks, like click on this when it's like this black X here, then it will pull down for me. So I want to do the same thing for post test. So I go over here and I say equals this number minus, and I want the mean for post test, which is this number. But again, we have to make sure that we use the dollar signs in front of the letter and the number to make sure that it's pulling from only that cell. And you hit return. So 99 minus 79.47 is 19.53. So then you go to the bottom corner, double click, and it pulls down for you. Okay, so, and then the next step, so we have all of the x minus m's, so that's good. The next step is what we call sum of squares. So sum of squares is the sum of the squared deviation from the mean. So what we just pulled were the deviations, or what we just calculated were the deviations. How much is the score different from the mean? Okay, so this score differs from the mean by positive 7.53. This score differs from the mean by positive 16.53. So that's basically saying 87 is 7.53 more than 79.47. But what we want to do with sum of squares is we have to first square these numbers and then sum everything together, okay? So here, what we're going to do is just take this number and then to the second power, okay? And everything should be positive here. So if it's not, we'll have to use parentheses, but everything should be positive because a negative times a negative is a positive. So when we click, pull down, it shows everything is positive. So that's good. And then we can sum that. And we get our final sum of squares. So we do the same thing here. And this is just a number. This is just a way of, you'll hear sum of squares. You'll see that in some of the stats that we'll run later on. So that's one of the reasons why I want you to see what this means. Okay, so you're going to read about it, or you should read about it in your text. And I just want you to understand what it's telling, what it's saying when it says sum of squares. Excuse me. So again, to square these, so we just do that, the second power, and then click down. All of that is positive, so we can sum these. Okay, so here's the sum of squares I got. And those can be input here to enter them into the quiz format. But you also have formula. I don't know if I mentioned the sum formula. I just did it. So sum formula is equals sum, and then you select the range of scores. So this will show you how to type that in, but if there is a formula that's input already like that, then it will pop up once you start typing it. So for example, if I wanted to get the mean or the average of this by just doing it this way, I could. So if I wanted to get the average of all that, it will give me 44.4, 44.4. So I could put those in manually, but because we have that data analysis ability, we can do this descriptive statistics, and it will pop for us more quickly. Okay, so another way to check you do your sum of squares correctly is there is a sum square function, sum square. Okay, and then you will have to select these numbers. Okay, so you want to select the deviations, and what that's going to do is it's going to square all these numbers and sum of those products. 29.54, and then if I expanded that, because you need two decimal places, it's going to give you that number. So the way to check just to make sure you got it correct, or using this instead, either way works as long as you understand what's happening. Okay, so 3395.73. So I can say even if I just did this equals that, and this equals that, however you want to do it is fine, as long as you just input the number, you know which numbers to input where when it goes to the exam, and I'll just say what's the sum of squares for the pretest, and then you could put that in there. So these are, you also have skewness and kurtosis here. So one thing to keep in mind for skewness and kurtosis, first of all, with this small sample isn't something that's going to be going to give me very good visuals here of. So because it's just not um, enough data to really give me a good distribution, but I do have these numbers. So kurtosis is if there was something abnormally high where like there was a very high point and it was tall and narrow. Um, Skewness, on the other hand, so if this were um, a big sample and this was like this, um, you would say this is positively skewed because the skewness is at the where the tail is. So where's the tail trail off? So if it trailed off like that, then you'd say it's positively skewed. But you don't really need to worry that something is kurtotic or skewed unless the number here is positive or negative 2 or higher or lower, like negative 2.5, positive 2.5. The further away from um, um, 0 it would be, just the absolute value of these numbers, the bigger it gets, the worse it is. So but again, you don't have to worry about that unless it's 2 or larger. So these look fine, and you don't have to worry about that being problematic, okay? Because we're going to later on learn that there are assumptions about the data that need to be met in order for a statistical analysis to be appropriate for that data set. So I can't just run something and say that it's trustworthy. There have to be certain criteria that you make sure that's present before you can use those stats for parametric stats. So if you want to like look at the other numbers, you can see standard deviation, and there's the variance. That's um, all the variance within the data, whereas the standard deviation is that standardized version of that. And then you have minimum, which is the smallest number, the largest number. So the range would be if you subtracted these. Okay, the range typically it's helpful to mention range, minimum, maximum, stuff like that. It is helpful to mention just to get an idea, but it is not going to tell you a whole lot about a data set. But it is good to you really know, like to get your baseline information about a set of data. You need all these descriptive statistics, but they can't tell you anything. Um, Anything that you can infer. You can't infer anything from these descriptives. So, but you will take this information, and these are things that you will put into your quiz. You get as many tries as you would like, but I hope that this helps. And if you have any questions, please send me um, an message in Canvas, and then an email if I haven't responded to you. I was very busy last week um, with an important federal evaluation of our system. So I wasn't on very much last week, but um, hopefully I'll be able to get on much more this week after work. So I hope that this has been helpful, and just send me any questions that you might have. Again, there's also a number to text on the course. I believe it's on the course homepage. If not, it's in the syllabus somewhere. But if there's any questions, please let me know and I will try to help clarify those. Okay.